90 seconds. It is me and Brandon Awadis. Awadis.
Hey,
Excuse me.
Awadis.
Awadis. I'm sorry. I am a jerk. I'm sorry. Yes. Too late. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
We practiced it a couple of times, but it's okay.
I know. I'm the worst. I know I will get your handle correct, though. I know for sure.
Let's go. Let's try it.
All right. Well, B-R-A, so Bradis. B-R-A-W-A-D-I-S.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. We got people joining. We are live streaming on not on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Periscope. Oops. I just touched something. All right, we're going to start back up in about 40 seconds. Well, not start back up. We're going to begin the show in about 40 seconds. Got more people jumping in. Hello, everybody. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT, yes. Two, what up? He's the best. I know you're looking at me. I know you want to see Brandon, but you're looking at me. And by the way, Brandon, what a lot of people do is, if you're able to, check out the Periscope stream, and then you can see their conversations and everything as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Why not?
All right, we're going to start up in about 10 seconds. Such as yours will experience buffering. Well, okay. No, it looks okay. That looks okay. All right, so now I got to make this public. All right, so we are on YouTube. We are on. Oh, it is a little laggy. Ooh, I wonder if I should. Well, I'll tell you what. We are live on Periscope and Twitter. All right, so let's get going. Welcome to Valley of the Suns Live, the weekly edition. I am your host, Adam Main, site editor of Valley of the Suns. I got with me the one, the only, the GOAT, hashtag the GOAT, Brandon Awadis. Brandon, all the way from California. How are you doing, my man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm seeing all those hearts. Please heart, please like, please retweet. We do this every week, every Monday evening, 6 p.m. Arizona time, unless I have technical difficulties, in which case we push back a few minutes. But I make it up on the end. We keep going for about an hour no matter what. So please join us if you're a Suns fan, and even if you're not, you're just a fan of live sports talk, and you want to be able to discuss NBA basketball. We focus on the Suns, but we talk about it a lot. Yeah, so I see I've got Boots says he's heard a lot about you. The GOAT. Love the rapid fires at the end. We do rapid fire at the end. Yeah, I take conversation. We are conversing with you. So shout out to the broadest squad. There was some cursing there I don't really allow, but that's not a problem. People can see that's okay. Shout out broadest. Dude, you've got this, man. So let's just see, let's just start right here, Brandon. So the Suns, let's just go with the big, we've got two huge topics I want to talk to you about. First off is Earl Watson. Secondly is Eric Bledsoe. Let's start with Earl. Earl Watson was, in my opinion, the worst head coach the Suns have had. A lot of people want to point to Lindsey Hunter, Terry Porter. You might have been able to go back even farther to Johnny Red Kerr, whoever. But in my opinion, I just watching the Suns, he was absolutely the worst. I was so excited when he was finally fired. It was about time. What do you think? I mean, were you kind of excited that he was gone, or
So obviously, you never want to be too excited when someone loses their job, but at the same time, this was something that it should have happened before the season started. I just don't know what we saw from Earl Watson last year that made us say, okay, let's keep him as a head coach going forward. It just made no sense to me. Yeah. And those first 3 games proved it. So, no, I was really happy when we decided to go a different direction. And I don't think it's Earl's fault. I think we hired him because he was a cheap hire, and we all know kind of Robert Sarver's history with stuff like that. I think we just hired him, and we were like, if it works, it works. If not, then we'll see what happens after that. So I do think he was one of the worst head coaches in Phoenix Suns history. And we've seen a difference these past 3 games. So I don't know if you could point it all to the head coach, but you can't deny what we've seen in the 3 games that he's been gone. So
yeah,
I'd say it's arguable. Yeah, he was a really bad head coach, but then again, he was kind of thrown into the fire and not really
totally unexperienced. Entirely.
Yeah, very unexperienced with a really young team, a lot of different personalities on this team, and I don't know, it just didn't work. So I was glad to see us go in a different direction, and I think it should have happened in the offseason.
I completely agree, and you know what, Brandon? You've got so many fans in here. Jason said that you should be the Phoenix Suns' next head coach. So I
don't know if I can handle that stress. There's a lot of young guys on this team.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I do agree. I publicly have been very harsh. We got a lot of goats. All right, so Aaron Findlay says he wants you to say hi. I'm not going to read everything you guys see. Hopefully he sees this too. But
I'll say, yeah, I'm looking over the comments. If I said hi to everybody that wanted me to, I think that would take up the whole hour.
Exactly.
That we have. So let me just say thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for following all my stuff. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, his channel is absolutely hilarious. It's a great channel. So absolutely follow him. You know, I was a very, and will continue to be a very harsh critic of Earl Watson. He should have never, you're right, he should have been fired in the offseason. I don't think he should have been given the extension after the initial interim tag. I mean, it was just as obvious that, you know, a lot of people talk about the new head coach bounce. You know, like a new head coach gets brought in and, you know, a team seems to respond very quickly. I mean, there's no doubt that Jay Triano got that. They're 2-1, and you know, they started out 2-0 under Jay, so there was that little bounce. Earl Watson's first 9 games as Suns head coach, he went 0-9. There wasn't a bounce. However, I will admit, I got sucked into the initial Earl Watson craze because, you know, they kind of, in his press conferences, it was all about love, it was all about family, it was all about work ethic. It was like, okay, I'm really digging this, especially following, you know, on the heels of all that went down with the Morris brothers. Yeah. And, you know, and so I just felt like they needed this kind of change of direction. Even though they went 0-9, and then, you know, they went like 12-23 under him. I mean, he just had a bad first few months. I bought into that. If a player I would run into a wall for him. But what I was blind to, that I saw regularly and consistently last year, and then obviously for the first 3 games here this season, this team didn't seem to really know what their roles were. They didn't know what they were supposed to be doing, and it just drove me nuts as a Suns fan. So, you know, it's just, you're right. I shouldn't ever revel in somebody losing their job, but it was just so difficult to watch this team under Earl Watson.
And what I know is that the whole starting lineup on opening night with TJ at the 4 and Josh Jackson at the 3, that actually wasn't announced to the team until the day before opening day.
Yeah.
So they were kind of practicing with, I don't know what kind of lineups they had out there, but they definitely weren't prepared for what he put out on opening night.
Yeah.
And you just don't see that happen unless there's a type of injury or a suspension. You don't do that. You don't have players practice with certain lineups, and then on opening night you throw out a new one. It just makes no sense.
Yes. And that's just not fair to the players either. You know, if these guys are pros, they want consistency, or as much as that can be offered. And so when you do something like that, and I know you're kind of rewarding Josh Jackson, but at the same time you're now hurting Marquise Chris.
Yeah, and then look at Josh Jackson. He's actually playing better coming off the bench. So he needed that consistency too. It's not just all about, I just want to start. No, if you have a better role off the bench, then you got to realize that, and that's what Jay Triano has done.
100%. So then, and by the way, Adam Maines, Brendan Broadus, excuse me, you know what? I even wrote it down. Brendan Awadis. I apologize. I started to say your Twitter handle. We are live here, Valley Suns Weekly Edition. So then the next big news is Eric Bledsoe. You know, Bledsoe is absolutely my favorite player on this roster, and he has been since they brought him in. The guy is just a hard-working dude. He's built like a bowling ball. I love to watch him drive a lane because, you know, even big guys even got out of his way.
Yeah,
you know, and then until this year, he never said anything
Oh, no.
negative. So then for that silly tweet, and the Suns have said that he's getting bad advice. Okay, maybe he is. They obviously, Ryan McDonough would know more than I do. I just feel like maybe it really was kind of a little bit of a, what do they call it, a subtweet. Maybe it was a bit of a subtweet. But in my opinion, honestly, they could have just said, you know what, it was a mistake, he didn't mean it, and then just behind the scenes really start to sell him, but let him be a part of the team, let him play. What did you think? I think the whole situation is just, it was unfortunately handled on both sides, so it's like, I want to put blame on both. It sucks to see Bledsoe go out this way, really.
So what I want to say first and foremost is that I know Eric Bledsoe, I'm just as close to Eric Bledsoe as I am to Devin Booker, not just himself, but his family, and he not one time has ever bashed the city of Phoenix, bashed the team. When people think about a professional, you never really think of Eric Bledsoe, but that's who you should think about. He did everything the way he was supposed to do.
Oh, yeah.
And, like you said, it sucks that, the fact that he's going to get traded, it had to be this way instead of just, a regular trade in the offseason or the way any other players go out. But the thing is, okay, so I'll agree. I don't think Bledsoe should have tweeted that because obviously not just killing his value, but it just gives a bad look to both sides, not just the team, but also the player. So I don't think he should have tweeted that. However, at the same time, when the Suns go all offseason trying to draft his replacement and not only trying to draft his replacement, but they actually asked him to sit games to have a better chance at drafting his replacement.
Yeah.
And when they weren't able to draft his replacement, they were trying to trade for his replacement. So, I mean, if you're going out of your way to try to do all that, why not just trade the guy? You really think, he's going to sit well with that? It just made no sense to me. But I do think they should have kept all this behind the scenes. But at the same time, just like the Suns handled Dragic, just like they handled Isaiah Thomas from the Morris, and Gerald Green also, it's not really a surprise. And it sucks to say this, but it's not really a surprise to see the whole Bledsoe situation handled like this. But yeah, it sucks. You would think, I don't know, somebody would learn the lesson from whether it was the Morris twins or Dragic or Isaiah. Just someone in the organization would have learned by now just to handle players a little bit better. And this is my team, so I never like to bash them, but they do definitely have to do a better job at, I don't know how you want to call it, player treatment, player management, whatever you want to call it, because players see that around the league. And it's going to be hard to attract free agents, even if you're a good team, if you have this kind of reputation.
Yeah. And, and that's what's so unfortunate. I'm right there with you. I mean, a lifetime fan. This behind me is from 1994. I mean, it's just, when I believe I was 10 at the time. So it really is, it's difficult to have to bash the Suns on any level. And obviously neither of us are bashing them per se, but, we're not happy with the way things are handled. The Morris situation, why couldn't they have texted or called Markieff when Marcus was traded? It's like, why the situation that kind of arose with Goran Dragic and Isaiah Thomas and Eric Bledsoe, I stand by that. I do wish that Dragic had stayed quiet just because I do think, based on at least what was released, the Suns were working to move at least one of those three. So it's like that logjam would have been ended. But at the same time, I certainly do see as a professional, and the guy who was the face of the franchise for the year before in Goran, that he would be a little upset that, hey, I've kind of developed this. I believe I deserve the starting spot. I believe that I deserve to be the true point guard. Why are you now kind of muddling up the system by bringing in not just one, who worked well with Goran. I mean, they won 48 games, but then with now bringing a third. So, it's just, to me, it's just, I kind of wish the players, and again, I don't know from Eric Bledsoe's perspective, but at least going to the past, the Suns have mucked this up. I do just believe that at least from a kind of a professional standpoint, both sides could handle the situation better.
Yeah. I mean, in favor of this, because I know I've bashed the Suns this whole situation just because of the fact of how they treated Bledsoe and now kind of bashing him after request of a trade. But kind of in favor of the Suns, what I read is that Bledsoe didn't actually request a trade until 2 weeks before the season started. So that's a completely different situation than if he did it kind of during draft time or free agency.
Yes.
If you're doing it 2 weeks before the season started, it kind of makes it hard on the Suns.
Yeah.
Just because players who had just signed a contract can't be traded until a couple months.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's true that he didn't do it until 2 weeks before the season started, then I kind of see why the Suns kept him on the team.
Yeah.
But if he actually did request a trade from like draft time or when free agency first started, it's just foolish to keep him on the team, because what did the Suns think would happen if you kept an unhappy player on the team? And I just don't see how you could see that ending in a positive note.
Agreed. You know, and that is what I heard too. That was reported locally that he had requested his trade during the preseason. Now, I don't know if during the preseason meant after Game 3 or honestly, you know, during training camp, that kind of thing. But from what I heard, I believe he met with the Suns twice and said, and you know, he was getting ready. You know, he's getting married, and so I mean, I could see that would occupy a lot of your time. And at the same time, could you be traded and get married? You know, I suppose. What if the Suns had done it? You know, without him requesting it, would it have affected things? Maybe not, but regardless, I could see maybe why he might have not requested the trade, because he was preoccupied, and, you know, maybe he also thought the Suns might actually go after, you know, a star player, and he'd been like, okay, cool, I got a new power forward, I'm ready to roll. So, you know, the whole situation is just, there is dysfunction, and I suppose that dysfunction starts on the top. It really must.
And it sucks, because if you're ever trading a player of, you know, Bledsoe's caliber, then you'd be hoping that you're going to be getting a lot in return. And instead, here we are getting screwed over again, just like we did for Isaiah, just like we did for Goran Dragic, and the list goes on and on. You would think at some point, if we're trading one of our best assets, that we would be getting, you know, good assets in return. But now, I mean, a trade isn't done yet, but you already know we're not going to be getting equal value for this trade because of the whole situation. So, I mean, it sucks, but what can you do, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully unfortunately we can't do a whole lot but just kind of hope and pray. Now we got a question that was just asked. How long do you think this will take? I'm actually, unfortunately, the way I looked at it was, if he wasn't traded within 72 hours, that this would probably take more than a month, because what I think will happen, or need to happen, is that a team will you know, they'll have an injury, or for some reason they'll just realize, you know what, this just isn't working. We want to make the playoffs, and still early enough that we implement a star player like Bledsoe that, you know, we can still kind of turn this thing around. So I think it'll take about a month for that to finally kind of settle in as the league, you know, starts churning and picking up speed. So I now think, so it's October 30th. I would not be shocked if he was still on the roster come Thanksgiving. What do you think? I mean, do you think there's a chance it could go a little bit sooner, or do you think that's not an overshot?
I think just because of the whole, like I said, if you were signed in free agency or moved during the free agency period, you can't be moved until December 15th. Yes. And when you hear that off the top of your head, you might not think it's a lot of players, but that's actually 30% of the league. That's what I read.
I want to say it was 131 players total.
Out of 4-something, almost 500. So that's a huge amount of chunks that you're pretty much taking out of McDonough's hands. Yeah. So, to me, like you said, he could be on the team till Thanksgiving. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the team till all the way around Christmas. So, this could last that long. Or at the same time, there's players like Moutier or hopefully Malcolm Brogdon that, you know, they didn't have any change of scenery this summer, so you could move them right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if I went to sleep and woke up and there was a deal done, or I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up on New Year's and he was still on the Suns. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's tough to answer this one.
And what really sucks about that, and I mean, in my opinion, you're entirely correct. You literally could wake up New Year's Day and he's still a Sun, because there's that second deadline too that I think is January 15th, if I recall correctly, and then there's the third deadline of the trade deadline in February. I want to say it's the 14th or 12th or something this year. It might be like the 8th, but you know, so there's those kind of checkpoints, if not deadline. I mean, the trade deadline is obviously a solid deadline, but there's a checkpoint for those two those dates in December and January where more players are now allowed to be traded, and it really could happen that they have to hold on to him that long. What just really sucks, though, is that in essence he was, and I would presume, although I don't want to certainly put a thought in his mind, but I would presume that one of the issues that was a driving force in him wanting to be traded is that he's 27. He's in the absolute prime of his career. Okay. He's finally healthy. I shouldn't say finally, but you know, he hasn't had a major injury since 2 years ago. Yeah. but he's also on a terrible team. And at the time, we had Earl Watson, so this team was particularly bad. I totally can understand a perspective of I'm wasting the prime of my career on a team that I cannot help bring over the top.
Yeah.
And so what blows from his perspective at this point is that now he's not even allowed to train with a team. He can't practice with an NBA team. He can't work out with an NBA team. I'm sure because he wasn't officially suspended, he can still contact. But I don't know what guys are, talking strategy with him. I believe, if I recall, that he was actually tweeting. He tweeted during the Sacramento Kings game, if I recall, Jay Triano's first game. So obviously he's still watching and he's friends with all those guys. But he's literally wasting the prime of his career now by not being able to actually play. And so what really just kind of hurts, I would say, if I were in his position, would hurt me from a mental perspective is, okay, had I not said anything publicly on Twitter, and according to Ryan McDonough lied about it, then at least I was wasting my career as an active participant in the NBA. And by chance, he would have had a new head coach that potentially could have treated him a lot better. Or not treated, but, worked him and put him in a better system. Now he's wasting the career from the couch. So that's really what's mostly unfortunate about his situation.
No, of course. And I'm sure, I don't know, if he could go back and not tweet that, I'm guessing he wouldn't, unless the Suns were pretty much telling him, hey, we know you requested a trade, but we're not going to trade you. I'm guessing that might be the only reason he actually went as far as tweeting it. Because Bledsoe, he's smart. He wouldn't do something like that unless he kind of had to, I guess.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, we don't know if the Suns did tell him, hey, unless we're blown away, you're stuck. And of course, now, I mean, to be fair to the Suns, he did sign a contract. So in that contract, there should be a level of expectation that you will fulfill that contract to the best of your ability. Now, players demand trades all the time, and teams trade players without a prior warning all the time. So that's definitely part of the game. But, they don't need to trade him. I mean, he's playing for the name on the front, not the name on the back. And and every player has a right to be selfish. So I do certainly give him that that kind of a leeway from that perspective. But there's definitely a more professional way he could have gone about it, and then he might have just had to suck up his 27-year in life, that is, by playing for a really bad Suns team.
I think I know where you're coming from, and of course, you're right. He signed a contract and stuff. But at what point? Because this is his fourth season with the Suns, right?
Is it fourth or fifth? It's somewhere there.
Yeah. So he's given the Suns have had how many off seasons to at least, I don't want to say turn into a playoff contender, but at least show something. And then this off season, the fact that they won 20 games or 23 games last season, and we didn't make one single move, I think that might have been what drove Bledsoe away. Because at least in previous off seasons, we would finish bad, but we would make something, whether it's, acquire a player or sign at least someone. But this offseason, we literally just stood pat and didn't do anything. And I think, if you're a championship team, that makes sense. But when you're winning 23 games, I just don't know how you could sit there, stand pat, and tell your soon-to-be 28-year-old star player, like,
suck it up.
I don't know how that made sense, but and not just going back to Bledsoe, but just in terms of the whole franchise. How do you sit there after winning 23 games and you don't make a single move, especially with all the movement this offseason, the way it went? I don't know. I was waiting for the Suns to do something, and it's understandable why they didn't. But it's just, I don't know. These are pros, and most of the young players came from winning colleges, so I don't know if they're losing much longer, but
I agree, and that's a perfect point. I mean, Josh Jackson come from Kansas. All they did was win. Devin Booker, Kentucky. All they did was win. Eric Bledsoe, Kentucky, and then the Clippers. All they've done is win. And then of course his first year in Phoenix, they won 48 games. Was that his first year?
Yeah.
So I mean, he went from not on top of the world, but very successful. Teams that were very successful to just suddenly. Suns have been bottom feeders for the last 2 years. So, I mean, and again, I certainly do not fault Eric Bledsoe for wanting out at all. As my favorite player, I wished him to be traded. I wanted to see him, work his definitely, succeed in his prime on a winning team, and the guy, like I said earlier in my description of him, just the hardest worker, quiet, unassuming, bowling ball. I loved watching him drive the lane because he just wasn't afraid of contact, and he could easily knock a bigger guy over.
Yeah, and a lot of people talk about his game, but I just want to say for many people who obviously don't really know him as a person, Bledsoe was actually the first time I ever, kind of got in contact with the whole team was because Bledsoe actually messaged me. They were coming to San Diego just for like some off-season training, and he went out of his way to message me like, hey, we're going to be in San Diego. He didn't even know me at the time. He just knew me from the videos. He's like, oh, so if you want to come by and blah, blah, blah. And then my last trip in Phoenix when I went to Booker's house, he was also trying to get me to go to his house after, just to chat or hang out, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So I mean, he's a really good person. So I don't know where all of this really came from. That's why it has me thinking that there's something so much more than just I don't want to be here, and it's something so much more than that. So
yeah,
it always comes out, whether it's a couple years down the road or in a couple months, but
yeah,
we'll see. I can't wait to see the interviews from both sides once the trade actually happens.
Oh, totally, dude! I've been thinking the same thing. I mean, it's those. But I'll be honest though,
McDonough gave us a little, too much of a preview of what he was going to say before he got traded. So,
and that's the thing is, I don't know if Eric Bledsoe will say anything. I mean, because he's had opportunities right now. I mean, he could say, granted, it would probably behoove him to stay quiet just because he does want to get traded. And maybe if he comes off as a little bit of a punk, then, that might hurt trades. But, I mean, stuff could have been leaked out. Nothing's being leaked out. I mean, he hasn't said anything.
He's just spending time with his kids and working out and just being Eric Bledsoe, I guess.
Well, and, and again, I'll go back and just say why I put a little bit more blame on the Suns, unfortunately, than on Bledsoe, is because, okay, he's all he tweeted is, I don't want to be here. And then it came out, he was literally and physically in a salon with his wife. So then he says, when Ryan calls and says, what was that about? And he was, who knows what that conversation was in terms of tone, and maybe did Ryan, kind of come off as a little confrontational. I don't know. But if he was physically in a salon, then he has plausible, he has a plausible story there. And Ryan McDonough could have easily come out and publicly just said, hey, he was in a salon, it was a mistake. And anything that comes out otherwise, they at least could deny it.
Or even if he wasn't at a hair salon and he requested a trade, why would you not come out and say, well, he was at a hair salon and blah, 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 for the sake of getting equal value in a trade?
Yeah. Yeah, it really, seriously. I mean, I just think the Suns have handled it so poorly. And locally, McDonough had been interviewed at least twice, maybe 3 times in the days after. And McDonough came off came off less and less aggressive in regards to Bledsoe. And so I think he was probably just pissed off, and I suppose I can't blame him. But he was probably just really ticked off. And then over a couple days, maybe his emotions calmed down. Maybe at a couple meetings, maybe Sarver said, hey, we still got to be able to trade him. Maybe, PR came to him and was like, we got to spin this, a little bit more positively. Because by his last interview that I heard a few days ago, he came back with, we were disappointed. We think he's getting bad advice.
Yeah,
but
and then
it was otherwise fairly positive. We love him. He's a great guy. He's a great player. We
and then mentioning how they've been getting a ton of offers.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. I do feel like McDonough possibly was very emotional at first, and then I wonder if he regrets it. He has to regret it, in my opinion. He's got to regret not just.
It's harder being in the seat of a general manager than what me and you are doing right now.
Sure.
But it's kind of common sense. Like, you don't. I think it was Rachel Nichols who said, when you're in elementary school, you're trying to trade a sandwich. You're not going to tell the person who you're trying to give your sandwich to, hey, this sandwich tastes really bad, but I'll trade you this.
Yeah.
You're good. Like, you don't. It's just common sense.
I didn't hear that, but that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Rachel Nichols, like, to make things worse, you know, she's a big time reporter on a big time stage, ESPN. So maybe if teams didn't hear McDonough's little interview, now they all know about it because it was on ESPN. So I don't know. No. Just the last thing I want to say about the whole Eric Bledsoe situation is that I don't even think it soured in the offseason or the first 3 games. I think when Eric Bledsoe is playing a fully healthy 66 games and he's putting up numbers that only James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and LeBron James are putting up, and you sit him down, not only do you sit him down and tell him, you know, we're trying to lose games, but we're trying to lose games so we could draft Markelle Fultz or Lonzo Ball so we could send you packing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but Bledsoe had tweeted right when they shut him down with kind of like an annoyed face.
Yes, I do.
So I think it all started there. That's where it all started. And then in the offseason with the whole Kyrie Irving trade rumors and, you know, trading with the Lakers for Lonzo, I don't know how legitimate those were. I know that the Cavs trade rumors were legit. I don't know about the trade with the Lakers for Lonzo. But just hearing his name and knowing that at least somewhat the Suns are shopping him is, I think, that's where it went more south. But I think it started last season, especially for a player who's, I don't want to say injury prone, but he's had a lot of injuries. And he's finally having a fully healthy season where, you know, helping a team win games after the All-Star break, having fun. They were all playing with a lot of energy and everything. You ask him to sit down like he's some sort of, you know, in Tyson Chandler's group.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they screwed up it all. That's where I think ever since then Bledsoe loved, or before that Bledsoe loved Phoenix. He loved his teammates and everything about it. So I think that's where it went south. And
completely
knowing that we would drop to number 4 in the lottery, I don't think it was worth it. But yeah, like things happen. It's a business, NBA, so we'll see how it turns out.
I completely agree. I mean, I was kind of hurt for Bledsoe when they sat him too, because you just didn't want him to sit. You didn't want Tyson Chandler to sit.
Yeah.
And then there was the situation with Brandon Knight where they sat him, and then when they sat Bledsoe, they said, "Okay, Knight, we need you to come back." And he's like, I entered my off-season workout regimen." He goes, "I'm not in the right shape," and it's just like that whole thing. It's just been bungled and bungled and bungled. But so now let's move on to the broader picture. Let's go back to the Suns, the name on the chest, and look at under Jay Triano now for 3 games. The Suns look like they've taken a step forward. Certainly, they look like for starters, way better passing. There obviously is some sort of a system set up, and I wouldn't be able to tell you like what specifically shifted under Triano versus Watson. Outside of it does appear to be a lot less isolation. That was the one thing that bothered me, was that the Suns' offense seems under Watson to have a lot of isolation.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a lot more passing. Turnovers are still high, but it looks like the players are turning the ball over because they're not quite in sync yet. And I'll bet $100 that by say Christmas, the Suns' turnovers are probably down 5 a game. I really believe that, because I think they're going to really start to get, barring a major injury that throws a cog in the mix, but I do think that they're going to get Jay Triano's system. They're going to feel it, they're going to understand it, they're going to live it, they're going to breathe it, and then these passes that are meant to be to wide open players, or at least players in a particular spot, are going to start reaching those players' hands. And then, of course, defensively, they look a hell of a lot better. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, it's night and day. It's almost as if Scott Skiles is the head coach and Jason Kidd is the starting point guard again. So it's just like, it's been an incredible transformation. I thought if Watson had remained head coach, that this team was going to break 60 losses and that they were going to make a run at the franchise's all-time worst record, which was from their inaugural year 50 years ago, of 16-66. I truly thought that. I was just like, they're just, and I blamed the system more than the players.
You thought you were looking up the Suns' worst season? I was looking up what the worst season in NBA history was. That's what I swear. I swear to you, I was messaging my friend and I was telling him I don't know if this team is going to hit double-digit wins. I really don't.
Yeah. It's
was crazy.
It was crazy. So it was 9-73 was the Philadelphia 76ers, but then in the 66 game shortened season, Charlotte won
Bobcats.
7, which would have been the equivalent of 8 if I recall. So they were gonna be that bad. But you bring in Toronto, and granted, 2-1 in 3 games doesn't mean anything. And they lost to Portland, a second time, so they weren't even able to get revenge. Although you didn't lose by 48, so in my my book, that was a huge.
That was a win. I don't care. We're 3-0 under Triano in my head.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're thinking long-term, regular season final standings, I get the sense that this team actually might win 30. But to go 30-52, which would mean they would need to win 28 more. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Let me. Because that's about what would that be? A 6-game improvement over last year. I'll reflect this. I'll say
7 games.
7 games. They won 23 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me amend that. Let me go 32-50.
Okay.
32. I mean, because that would still be a 9-game improvement, and that's kind of a big deal. But
I will also say, especially when,
I'll also say if I were to bet on 32 as being the baseline and vote, bet over or under, I'd actually bet over too. So I could see up to 35. I really don't want to push it too high. I mean, of course, if they broke 35 once and won like 37 or something, I mean, I'd be beyond ecstatic. But I mean, I could see like 35 almost being a ceiling this year. So I'll say 32-35 now is definitely 32-35. What do you think? I mean, is that how would you place it?
I think if we broke 35, that would be a huge accomplishment, regardless of draft status.
Yeah.
If we broke 35 wins, I wouldn't even care about the draft. That would be a huge jump, especially when you're losing arguably your best player. I know everyone looks at Devin Booker as the best player, but Bledsoe was out there too. So losing your best player.
Yeah.
And not really adding anything in the offseason, if you're able to get a 10 to 12 win jump would be, huge. Because for that to happen, you would have to look at Bender being a huge improvement, Chris, Booker. So it would be a huge plus. And I don't know if over 35 is realistic. I don't even know if 35 is realistic.
Yeah.
But I think we could, get 30 wins. And that just having a 7-game improvement from last season without really adding a major piece. Because like I said, that would just speak volumes on how the young guys are developing. And that would make me excited. Because after the first 3 games, I was scared that these young guys would kind of turn into like Sacramento Kings young guys and just, ruin a lot of their career. No, I definitely think 30 is a possibility.
Yeah.
I think we're going to finish with at least 27-28 unless we shut some players down, which I doubt we'll do after last season.
Agreed.
I think 30-32 is a realistic goal. If we were to hit 35, I'd be really happy. But yeah, I definitely think in the 30s is realistic with the way we played the past 3 games. Even the loss to Portland, I mean, you're losing on the road to a playoff team who had pretty much everybody playing. And not just that, but we were down by 1 with a minute and a half. So, I think 30-32, even 33 wins is realistic. Anything more than 35, and I'd be marking my calendar for next season to start already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The excitement level would skyrocket.
Yeah. Of course.
We were talking before the show started. I'm a proponent of drafting a big man high, a wing, a scoring wing, or a big man. I mean, my hope is that the Suns find the next exceptional center. I'm a big also Luka Doncic fan, and I would love to get him too. And the thing is, though, is that if the Suns were to win over 30, let's just go 30-32, they're probably finishing at the highest 4th, I would guess, at the highest 4th in the lottery standings, but potentially even 5th. Just depending on if there's another like really bad team somewhere, and truthfully, even lower. I mean, it could.
I think with 30 wins, I think we're looking at a 6 to 8 spot in the draft.
So it would be super exciting. Don't get me wrong. I want to watch wins I watch every game. You know, we write about every game. I'm just like, I want to watch wins. I'm tired of watching losses. But it would be a little disappointing to lose out on a top 3 pick. Now, of course, teams win the lottery, you know, jumping the Suns all the time, and you know, so why couldn't the Suns do it? Who knows? They won't. It's not our. That's not what we're supposed to do. That's not our lot in life, is to be lucky in the lottery. Wow, that was great alliteration. But you know, at the same time, you still have the Miami pick. You still have hell. I mean, you never know how Bledsoe gets traded. Maybe they get another first-round pick, or maybe they get, by any luck, that Brooklyn pick. And I know they're not, you know, they're not as terrible as they were, but it's at least potentially the most movable high draft, you know, potential lottery pick. You know, so you just never know if McDonough can work some magic at that point and, you know, win 32 games and then manage to trade 3 picks for the number 2 pick or number 3 pick, and you know, and still land one of those bigs or a guard. But they just need something to change the tone that this franchise has set over the last 3 years.
And see, this is where me and you have pretty much agreed for the majority of this show. And I think this is where, in my opinion, I'm sick and tired of hearing, let's draft high one more time, because let's just a little bit look back. We took Chris and Bender 2 top 8 picks in the same draft, and both big men. Yeah. So I know it's way too early to say that, you know, we're unimpressed with both of them, but at the same time, if you're drafting 2 players in the top 8, and in the second season we're still hoping to just see, you know, 1 good game every week or a couple of good games a month to be, you know, excited, I don't know. I feel like one of them should have. When's the last time a team took 2 players at the same position in the top 8 and one of them didn't kind of just like burst into, you know, being a really good player? It's I don't know if it's bad luck or what it is, but my point being, so we took 2 players in the top 8 who are still a little bit shaky. I know they're still both really, really young, but you can't say about either of them that they're going to be for sure stars, about either of them. Yeah. Then you have, obviously, Josh Jackson, who we can't say anything about yet. Yeah. Nothing yet. Then, obviously, we took Len, top 5, who I know we could say is not a, you know, a star. Good, I would say not a good player, but not a star, of course. Yeah. Arguably, he might not even be a starter on a playoff team. So, yeah, there's that, And then your 2, I guess you could say, best young players right now, Booker and TJ, they were picked 13 and 14. So, I don't know if the Suns just getting unlucky with what drafts they get high picks in, or they're just not that good at scouting. I don't know what it is, but I think our next piece, it has to come from free agency or trade. I don't know. I don't really trust the whole draft process. There are so many just like you saw this year what happened with Fultz, and obviously it's an injury, so it's nothing like that. But you see the Celtics, how they made out compared to what everybody was thinking in the offseason. Like, oh, what are the Celtics doing? And then now you have Tatum averaging almost 20 points a game already. So it's just, I don't know. And then you have Lauri Markkanen coming out of nowhere, who everyone would have bet their money on that he would bust, coming, you know, playing maybe the best rookie so far. So I don't know. The draft is such, it's so, I don't know. I'm just so tired of hearing, okay, if we get one more top 5 pick, just one more piece, and then blah, blah, blah. I think, honestly, if we did end up packaging our pick and the Miami pick, and I know members of the timeline are probably going to hate me, but I would package those. First, I would probably use our draft pick, but if we were to move them, I don't know if I would be to move them up. I think it would be to move them for a player, a star player. And I just think these players, I know we're still young, but I think these players are ready to win. They're ready to maybe not be a playoff team yet, but at least see a change in culture. And I don't know if that happens with another top 3 pick. I think that happens with maybe acquiring a young star, or maybe a star, even if they're a little bit older, maybe 28, 29, but that has winning experience. And I know Booker's only 21, but he's a really good player. I don't buy any I don't buy any of the BS. Oh, Booker's overrated. He's just a scorer. Because us as Suns fans, we watch every game and we know Booker's a good player. And I think he could help a team win right now. Not as the first option, not carry a team yet, but I think if he had a sidekick next to him, the Suns could be a good team. Not a championship team, but they could be a good team. So I don't know. Drafting is so risky, it's so shaky, but at the end of the day, I mean, the Suns are most likely going to get a top 5 pick. But if they don't, I don't know if I'd be as upset as everyone else would be. Of course, I think so. Here's where it splits for me. If we're going to be winning around 25 to 28, then I think we might as well win 0 and get the number 1 pick.
Agreed.
But if we're winning, around 32 to 35, I think that's where it's okay to kind of drop because you're seeing improvement.
Yes.
So, and I think at our positions, so we have Booker at shooting guard, you have Warren and Jackson at small forward, and then you have Bender and Chris, 2 bigs right there, depending where you want to slot them in. And I don't know. I mean, I like Ulis. I don't know if he could be a full-time starter in this league. So I kind of feel like if you draft a big man, and I know there's talented big men in Bamba and Ayton, but it's kind of like, okay, what happens with Bender or Chris at that point? It's like you drafted 2 guys in the top 8. Both of them are getting heavy minutes right now. And both of them, although I said either of them don't look like stars yet, they both don't look like busts. Yes. So it's like, I don't know. It's weird. We have so many young pieces, so many young players, and then you got to also factor in that at some point they're all going to be hitting free agency within 2 years of each other. So then it becomes that factor. Would you maybe have to trade one or give one up, like Serge Ibaka and the whole James Harden situation? Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of risk. I would love a top 3, top 4 pick, maybe even the number 1 pick. But at the end of the day, I don't know, this team, and I know I'm close to a lot of the players, and they're ready to win. They don't like this whole process and tanking and timeline stuff.
Agreed. And you know what? You and I see eye to eye on that as well. You have my word. I am anti-draft, and I'm not a fan of draft picks because just look at 2 things. First off, how many top picks are busts or just average? I mean, how the Cleveland Cavaliers have just recently. I mean, just how many number 1 picks? There is no guarantees in the draft, especially now. That's my broader point, rather than going to specifics. There's just no guarantees in the draft. Yeah. Not only should Devin Booker have been the 3rd pick at the lowest in his draft, but then you look at the Suns took Alex Len, and who was drafted, I believe it was 10 picks behind, was the Greek Freak. Yep. So, and now he's the superstar in Alex Len. So, no, I completely agree. I would trade picks for stars any day. The reason why I hesitate for this just particular draft is just the fact that there has been so much hype over Bamba, Ayton, and Doncic that it almost, if they're like, this is the 2004 draft again, this is 2004, this is, LeBron, Wade, so on and so forth. And so if that is true, then that is definitely it's at least the cheaper bet, because you're just losing a pick if that doesn't work out versus a lot of money to a player that might just not work. So, but in the end, though, I completely agree with you.
No, and I know where you're coming from. If the projected top picks in this draft were, small forward or something like that, then I understand. But big man, I know where you're coming from, because the Suns realistically could be one dominant big man away from, having the brightest future in this league with already having Booker, Josh Jackson, and pieces like that. So, I know where you're coming from. We just got to hope. I think if I wasn't a Suns fan, if I was a fan of another team, I would be pushing for this. But the Suns' draft history just scares me. That's what it is, I think.
Well, I mean, historically, may I ask, what do you mean by that? Do you have something in specific? Obviously, the worst pick that Ryan McDonough ever made was Alex Len, but only because who was drafted 15th was, Antetokounmpo. Yeah, so, I mean, but at the same time, there are 14 other GMs that didn't take him too.
No, but I think Gobert was also in that draft.
He was. And then,
CJ McCollum. But no, that draft was bad in its own right. It was just historically bad.
Yes.
And I think
or at least misread, And obviously Anthony Bennett too. So that's the thing. The number overall pick was Anthony Bennett, Victor Oladipo, Otter Porter, Cody Zeller, Alex Len. You know,
Yeah,
so that's like Nerlens Noel 6th, Ben McLemore, Kentavious Caldwell Pope. Okay, Trey Burke. Okay, so your first like really good player in that draft is CJ McCollum at 10.
Yeah.
And so that's just, and then you've got, you know, Steven Adams, Kelly Olynyk, Giannis is 15th, Dennis Schroeder 17th, Gorgui Dieng was 21. You know, so it's just Rudy Gobert 27. It was just weird how that draft was just so poorly read by GMs across the league.
Yeah, the same as the one where we took Bender and Chris. Obviously, again, it's way too early to tell.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that draft, aside from Simmons, because you had Ingram go second, and Ingram, I mean, I don't know what the Laker fans are, so they get so excited about, because he hasn't shown, you know, too much for a number 2 pick in his second season, and I think that draft also wasn't too strong. So maybe it's the Suns ending up just high picks in the wrong draft. And also the fact, like I said, I know these players want to win. They don't want to wait around for another 3-4 years. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. If the Suns were to get a top 3 pick and they drafted one of the bigs, or Doncic from Europe, is he a surefire point guard, or is he kind of a combo?
So he's kind of a combo. So he'd be able, as I understand it, he'd be able to work out as an offensive point guard and a defensive shooting guard. So it would be, or small forward even. So it would be, he'd be combo on both sides of the court from that perspective. But I mean, the guy can definitely pass, and he's shown that in Europe. He plays more shooting guard in Europe. But you know, I've wanted the Suns to actually, especially now that Bledsoe is out of the picture, unfortunately. I've wanted the Suns to really put Devin Booker at the point and just say, you know, just do it. I mean, I can envision an offense, and I'm not in those practices, so maybe I'm way off. But I've been wanting this for over a year now. I envision an offense where Devin Booker plays the role of Steph Curry, and that is just that a very good scorer, very good shooter. That the moment a defender takes a step back, boom, he's got the shot over. The moment he comes close, or they double team, boom, he's going to make that pass. Because Booker is an underrated passer, and I think he's also got an underrated offensive eye. So, and I think that's what Doncic is. Doncic is really more of kind of a scoring first, but he's got the ability to score. He can read a court, he can read a defense as well. And the moment a second player comes up on him, boom, he knows where to pass that ball. He knows to get it out, and that'll just open up the offense tremendously. But then with his height, he's not, even in Europe, he's not that exceptional of a defensive player as it is, which is fairly typical for a European, unfortunately. But then he projects to be more of a small forward, a shooting guard to small forward defensive player.
And let me say this in case we go back to, maybe later in the season we go back to this topic of, should the Suns be purposely bad for a high pick or keep winning? Because let me say this. So last season, when, I don't know if you remember, we had that stretch where we played Denver 2 times and then we played Minnesota. So we had a 3-game stretch, and they were directly above us in the standings, and we were kind of hot at the time. So if we went 3-0 in that spot, in that situation, we would be kind of in a good spot by the trade deadline. So I think it was when all the talk was, should the Suns trade deadline be focused on burning down and tanking for a high pick, or should they try to make a playoff push? And I was obviously in favor of, okay, we have Bledsoe, we have Booker, and we have the picks and pieces to kind of trade for a Jimmy Butler or trade for, whoever was available at the time. Yeah. But then after we traded Tucker for essentially nothing and we started losing all those games, at the end of the season, I felt like a Laker fan. I was rooting for them to win all their games so the Suns could fall below them, and come draft lottery, I was ecstatic that the Suns had the second highest chances. So I'm saying this now. Yes. But you never know. You start watching college ball, you start reading all these mock drafts, and then you just start buying into the hype. Drooling. Yeah, no, I'm sure you know how that goes. The season starts, you want playoffs. 2 months into the season, you start watching college, you start reading all these draft articles, and you start wanting to lose every single game. Yes. So it's just a confusing time to be a Suns fan, and I give props to me and you. Let's just keep it at that.
Well, thank you. And I just pulled up their schedule from last year. So you were discussing Minnesota and then back-to-back against Denver, and that would have been January 24th to the 28th. They had just won before that Minnesota game. They just won 2 in a row against New York and the Raptors. And they were 15-29 at the time. And that was also on the heels a week prior. They'd been in Mexico City where they stole that game against San Antonio.
Yeah.
So they had won at that point 3 out of 5, and then actually 5 out of 7. And they were looking at this. It looks like they were like 6-6 over a stretch of 12 games. So I do remember that. But then they lost by a point to Minnesota, and then 7 to Denver, and then 9 to Denver. And then the following game was a blowout by 19 to Minnesota. Excuse me, Memphis. So yeah, I remember that stretch. You're right, and that would have been the perfect time to make that move for a Jimmy Butler, too.
Yeah. So if we had won, or even went, I think it was if we went 2-1 in those 3 games against Minnesota and Denver, I think we would be maybe the 9th or 10th seed, and that wasn't that early in the season. That was about halfway through at that point. So I mean, it would have made sense to kind of go for a Jimmy Butler or maybe even Blake. I don't know if we would have traded for Blake or if the Clippers would have even given him up, obviously. But yeah, a Jimmy Butler would have been a perfect thing to trade for at that point. Who knows where we would have been now? Who knows what would have happened? That's obviously all hypothetical, but I remember that stretch, and that's kind of where the players were. They were excited. I remember, or I heard after Wiggins hit that game winner in P.J. Tucker's face because Tucker slipped. I'm sure you remember that last season.
Yeah.
Tucker was
on. They would have put them about the 9th, depending on what everybody else did in between. Because between Denver and the Suns was New Orleans, Sacramento, the Timberwolves, Lakers, and Mavericks. But if things had to stay the same, so but going back to the topic of like you said, you're all excited at the start of the year, and then like last year you were just kind of like ready for the losses because you wanted that higher pick. I hope. Obviously, we don't want, and we presume that the players will never, ever think that way. I mean, they all wanted to win. And I remember vividly that Eric Bledsoe tweet, that kind of frowny face or whatever it was, when he was benched. And, we heard stuff that Bledsoe wasn't happy. We also heard that Earl Watson wasn't happy. And he actually said that publicly. So certainly we hope that the team never, we hope that the team never lets themselves drop from that, mentally from that degree. I also just hope that Suns fans don't now get used to this from the perspective of maybe they're 500. Let's just say 60 games in, they're 30-30, and fans are still going, boy, I hope that we lose the next, 22 games or whatever and go 30-52 so we can get a higher pick. I really hope that the Suns fans can almost, how like veteran teams will just turn it on for the playoffs. I hope that Suns fans can turn it on for the playoffs as well and go, hey, let's make a freaking push. I don't mind what Portland did last year, to win all those games to end the season. That streak was incredible. Sure, they got swept by Golden State, but they were there,
Yeah. And then also Miami, how Miami finished really, really close. They ended up missing the playoffs, which sucks.
By a game.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that the fans don't understand, and me, again, I know I keep bringing this up. I'm not doing it to brag, just more so to kind of just show that, I've been there. And being close to a lot of the players, and, every time I go there to Phoenix and I go to a game, I end up staying, in the locker room and just around all the players, is that developing a losing culture is a real thing. It's not some sort of myth. Yeah. And, like, players they can get used to losing, and then no matter how good a player becomes, it's just a losing culture it's real, and you've seen it happen with Sacramento, with Minnesota before this offseason, with Philadelphia, and that's the last thing the Suns want. The last thing you want is your team having or just your organization having a losing culture, and it's just that's what scares me. I understand last season was, a potentially, franchise-changing draft, so I guess that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the scary thing. You've seen it happen to plenty of teams. How many years did Sacramento have a high pick, or Minnesota, and you just saw them keep lottery year in and year out, and it's just that's a losing culture. They had good players. You saw Boogie Cousins, and at one point they had a little bit of talent around him, and then you saw Minnesota. I don't know. That's what a lot of fans don't realize. You don't want to develop a losing culture. A lot of people probably just hear the word and they don't really think too much of it, but actually being around a locker room and being around the GM and the owner and just the families is you actually get to know what the term losing culture, it actually has an effect on all these players and the team itself. So I think that's what the Suns, I don't think they're there yet, but I think that's what they need to be careful of trending towards. I think that's the last thing this franchise needs, is to kind of have a couple more losing seasons. And I know this one's going to end up being a losing season no matter what, but it'd be nice to see the Suns go after somebody this offseason, whether it helps them beat Golden State or not, just to kind of make the players happy, because it's scary if you develop a losing culture. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? The other thing is that, as you mentioned earlier, their two best picks so far, Devin Booker and T.J. Warren, were 13th and 15th.
Yeah.
So losing at least gives you slightly better odds of drafting the next great player, but Antetokounmpo was drafted 15th. So it's no guarantee. So I totally agree, man. And losing cultures are scary. As an Arizona fan through and through, the Cardinals, the football Cardinals, had a losing culture for forever. I mean, it was 88 to 06, really. I mean, 07 was just a losing franchise. And, they had their little moments there in between, but until Kurt Warner, who they didn't draft, they just, all they did was lose. And so it sucks. And the Suns playing 82 games and having the fourth highest winning percentage in league history. And if I recall, I saw the Phoenix, the state of Arizona actually opened a Phoenix Suns Hall of Fame in the state capitol, and it's set up on one of the walls, a stat that I had not heard. The Suns actually own the league's highest scoring percentage. They average 107.2 or 3 points a game in over 50 years. Nobody averages more points than the Suns per game. So it's just like, this team has so much history. And for it to be thrown away for right now, what looks to be an 8th consecutive non-playoff season, totally shattering the prior record, and having done it for at least 2 years in spectacular fashion, that losing just, it wears on the players, it weighs on the coaches, it weighs on the league, because now, why would I join that team? All they do is lose. They can't do anything right. They'll just kick me out and blame me for it in 3 years.
Yeah.
Weighs on the fans.
And, the one more thing I wanted to say about, losing and then getting a high pick and blah, 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 is like, okay, so the good thing, and again, this is what like the casual fan doesn't really think about or see, is that Devin Booker is he has a lot of friends around the league. Yeah. He talks to a lot of different people, and he's if not well liked, he's well respected by a lot of different players. So, and that's a major thing. The Suns have that one player who can potentially bring in a friend or bring in a player by simply shooting a text like, "Hey, I want to play with you," and that's something that the Suns haven't had. I want to say
since Nash.
I mean, Nash was the type of player who you wanted to play with, because of how he played. Nash wasn't really the, oh, come play with me, come join me, but players wanted to because they know what he could do.
Gotcha.
I don't know if the Suns have ever had a player like Booker, and that's obviously due to the social media obviously getting so big nowadays, but I don't know if the Suns have ever had a player who connects with so many other NBA players like Booker, and he has a lot of friends around the league. So in my opinion, it's kind of like, would you rather lose a bunch of games, piss off your players such as Devin Booker and try to draft someone good? Or would you kind of go for a 35, 36 wins, show improvement to where free agents will at least look your way, and then kind of rely on Booker to be like, yo, let's try to talk to this player. Maybe, we'll give him the meeting, but you try to bring him over, try to make that final, yo, let's come here and make the playoffs. And I think that's what the Suns have, that kind of like Sacramento or Minnesota didn't really have in all those years that they were trying to tank and stuff like that. So I think that's something that goes unnoticed. The Suns have someone who players want to play with already, which is impressive being in his third season.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. I always like to give fans a couple minutes of rapid fire. If they have any questions, I just answer them really quickly. So let's take about 3 minutes and do that, and then we'll call this a night. Go ahead and send on Periscope or Twitter any questions you got real quick, and we'll answer them. I can say very briefly, we had a bunch of questions. Two that I saw a lot. Does Booker want to stay? Which he publicly actually did say, you guys, a few weeks ago. I don't know if it was public, but it was definitely leaked, where he said he wants to spend his career here.
No, I'll tell you guys this. I talked to Booker a lot. I was just talking to him, wishing him a happy birthday and stuff like that. Booker likes it in Phoenix. So for a lot of people worried, oh my gosh, if we keep losing, Booker's going to leave. You have this. Booker likes the city of Phoenix. He likes playing for the Suns. But at the same time, if the Suns are losing, every single season that he's here up until his contract year, then, I mean, which player would want to stay? So you got to look at it that way.
Yes.
But there is the positive that Booker likes the city of Phoenix and he likes playing for these fans. So that's a good thing.
Yes. Another question is, would you have any interest in Jahlil Okafor on the Suns?
For Eric Bledsoe, no.
Well, I mean, let's just say in general, because I don't know if.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they would want him. Want Bledsoe.
Yeah. No, I mean, in general, it's kind of like a why not if we're already bad, but it wouldn't bother me if we passed on him.
Yeah. Okay. Do we know Okafor's game? Does Sarver need to be gone? Moutier. By any chance, do you want Goran Dragic to come back to the Suns?
Dragic is my boy. I like Goran, but it wouldn't really make any sense for either party. Maybe he could retire a Sun one day, but
that would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. But I don't know if he would enjoy playing in Phoenix again.
Okay, can the Suns improve with Sarver? I'll answer that and say yes. I mean, they can. Wish we can pull a heist for Markkanen with giving them Bledsoe. DJ next year. What is there a DJ that I'm not? DeAndre Jordan. Oh, is that what you're asking about, DeAndre Jordan? Would you like DeAndre Jordan on the Suns next year or Andre Drummond?
I mean, we need a big man, so depending on how the season goes and where we draft, if we miss out on one of the bigs in the draft, I would like to see that. They're most likely both going to come at a max contract price. I didn't know DeAndre was a free agent, so that's interesting.
And Andre Drummond is already under contract, and he was signed before the big, before the big leap in salary cap. So I would take Andre Drummond for sure. He's only 24. He's already highly productive. Just can't shoot a free throw.
Yeah, I mean, taking on Drummond or DeAndre is a little scary just because of how the league has changed for shooting big men. Yeah. But you also can't forget a big part of the game, and that's defense, and they both protect the rim. So, Go ahead.
Jay Brown asked if you have a second favorite team.
I do not. I'm a huge Suns fan, and I don't ever see myself support. I support other players. For example, if wherever Bledsoe goes, I'll be rooting the best for him, but I will never root for another team to win games over the Phoenix Suns.
Yep. Same here. All right, let's take one more, and then we'll wrap this up in about 40 seconds. Okay, well, in the finals, Warriors or Cavs?
Who
do you think will win, and who do you support?
Oh, who do I support? I like to see LeBron win. I'm a little bit of a LeBron fan. I'm not gonna lie, but I think the Warriors take it. They're too overpowered. Historically good team.
Gant said you can't root for the Warriors if you're a Suns fan. I agree. You can't root for a division.
No, I'd like to see LeBron win another championship before the Warriors do.
And then let me ask this one sidebar, and then we'll call it a night. Do you think LeBron needs another title, another two, and any number of titles to reach the level of Jordan? Do you think he's already at the level of Jordan, or can he ever reach the level of Jordan?
I mean, obviously being a little bit younger, I just turned 22 years old, so I didn't get to watch too much Jordan, but obviously knowing the history of the game, I would put LeBron up there right now. Not better, but I think he's in the conversation no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
And regardless if he wins one or two more, I think it's such a shaky topic. I think no matter how many more he wins, he could win even 3 more, and I think you're always going to have the people, oh, well, he played in a different era than Jordan. If Jordan played in this era, if LeBron played in this era, I think what people have in their head now is not going to change until the time LeBron retires. That's the way I see it. Whatever people have put in their head now, LeBron's 32, 33 years old, it's not going to change. Yeah, what they have in their mind, that's what they think, and they're not going to let that change.
Yeah. So I'm you said you're 22, so I'm 11 years older than you. I watched Jordan from 93 to 92. 2000 when he retired, minus those 2 breaks. But so I didn't see him in the late 80s and then before 93. Like my first experience with the NBA was December of 92. Okay. I will say this though, I 100% agree. LeBron is in the conversation as one of the greats. Without a doubt. I mean, he's there with Magic, with Kareem, with MJ. Yeah. Go down the list with Wilt and Russell and so on and so forth. It's hard for me to place LeBron above Jordan just because there was absolutely nobody who hated losing, I feel like, more than Jordan did. And and obviously would physically fight teammates. And we know all the stories about him punching Steve Kerr. So, I mean, to me, I kind of feel as a competitor, I'm a competitor at 2K. I'm not a competitor on any professional level. But I mean, I respect that glowing red fire so much in an athlete that when they want to vomit because they lost, to me that's just like, all right, you go up, even if they're like statistically this, I do that, I go up, I'll just be like, I'll put you up there. So, and I just saw somebody say Giannis will be. He very well could. Was it Stephen Curry who said that Giannis is the best ever, and Kevin Durant that said he's the best in the league now, or vice versa, something like that. I mean, Giannis might be up there too. So, all right, sir. Well, I had a freaking blast. What'd you say? Missing. Yeah, we won't answer any more questions. Now, if you want to tweet at me, I'd be happy to answer more questions. So this is Adam Inns. I've been here with Brandon Awadis. Brandon's YouTube channel, which is great. I love watching this thing. BRAWADIS. Search for him. Obviously, I've been tweeting out his Twitter handle all night, and then, prior to the show, I haven't been on Twitter since. And then I will be posting this and retweeting it, so I'll have Brandon linked in here constantly. Please watch him. Please follow our stuff. I am back here unless Eric Bledsoe gets traded. When Bledsoe gets traded, I'll be back live for a special edition episode. Otherwise, I will be back here next Monday. Oh, there we go. Next Monday at 6 o'clock Arizona time for a weekly show. I try to bring in a guest at least once a month, hopefully a little bit more often, because I prefer to talk. Brandon, you have no idea. I can talk to myself for an hour, but it's so much more fun to talk to somebody, I got to tell you.
You're telling me. We talked for almost an hour and a half right now. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. You have my word. I'm going to call you back at some point. I would love to have you back on. Maybe after Bledsoe's traded. That might be kind of the perfect thing to break down that trade and just see how that goes. But again, that might not happen, as you said, until after December 15th, and it could stretch all the way into the middle of February as well. So anyway, please, again, we love the hearts. Please like, please retweet. When I share this out, please share this on Facebook and Twitter. And other than that, I love you all. I do this for you. This show is made for you. Please come back next Monday, and we'll see you then. Go Suns!
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And let me